This is Chelsea Schneider, AIM Municipal Innovation Specialist, and I am here with Richmond Mayor Dave Snow, actually at the Indiana Conference of Mayors in Lawrenceburg, talking about a lot of transformative projects the mayor is undertaking in Richmond. First off, a really cool project, kind of long time in the making, to demolish a former dilapidated hospital along a main transportation corridor through the city. So, Mayor, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking time to let me sit down and talk with you. We are under a lot of construction and transformative projects right now, and you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that our citizens aren't thrilled with all that we're going through, but we really are transforming the city right now at this moment. Talking about that hospital, you know, very unique situation, but it's something that a lot of mayors deal with, where you have a big old building that changes hands, and through one way or another, what ends up happening is it gets dumped in the mayor or the commissioner's lap, and it appears to be this giant boondoggle that you can't circumvent. You can't get around it. And what had ended up happening with the hospital, and I think this is really important, this is the lesson I really want to convey to other community leaders. And for that very reason, I actually submitted this project as an AIM Idea Summit project to hopefully get to present at the summit. When projects like that happen, so this hospital, for example, when the occupying medical organization, which was Reed Health, when they decided to vacate that building and to build a new building and move out, they did all of their due diligence. They even budgeted for the demolition of the building. A buyer came along and purchased the building, couldn't make a working business model out of it, so put it back up for sale again. Another buyer purchased the building. This time the buyer was out of state, showed a lot of plans and a lot of promise about what the building was going to become. Then we question now whether those plans were ever legitimate, but ended up just gutting the building, walking away from it, and taking no responsibility for it at all. So now the building sits vacant for nearly 10 years. We have a basement full of water, 10 feet of water inside the building, and just what had turned into an attractive nuisance. Now it had become a place of exploration. You got to go check out the old hospital because, you know, it's all run down and dilapidated. And you know, I came into this office, a lot of people saying, what are you going to do about that old hospital? And we knew it was just a matter of time before we saw a loss of life in the building because it had become an attractive nuisance. What ends up happening with buildings like that is they take on this air of myth. So since it had sat vacant for 10 years and no one knew what to do with it, there was all this sort of talk that would go around about, oh, I hear that thing's going to cost $20 million to be able to tear it down and clean the site up, or I hear it's, no, I've heard it's 25 million. And it just takes on this sort of urban myth about it, and it really leads to the entire community feeling like, well, if nobody's able to take care of that, then I guess we can't take care of much of anything. It had really become a boat anchor for community morale, economic development. No one was able to look forward because they kept looking back at that mess. And it's a very old saying, and I hate to be cliche in this interview. I apologize for being so cliche, but there's the old saying, you can't steer a ship by looking at the wake it leaves behind you. You can't do that. You'll always crash the ship doing that. And that hospital, that old hospital, had created that type of feeling for our whole community. No one was able to adequately forward plan, because when you would say, well, think about the community we can be in 5 years, they'd always say, well, we can't be much, we can't clean up that old hospital, it's still sitting there. And so that's what had happened. So when you take all that and you create this aggregate pool out of the urban myth and the low morale and the only able to look back instead of look forward, it was really a major problem. And so the whole thing really culminated in teamwork. It took county council, county commissioners, city council, and myself, all of us working together, which is 20 elected officials, which is a lot of different platforms and agendas and political backgrounds and a lot of different stances on a lot of different things. It took all of us taking all of that different stuff and taking it off the table and putting it on the floor and only leaving on the table the hospital and saying, what are we going to do? And we just took we took it one little baby step at a time and said, let's start with a hazardous material survey, because the last owner, since that person gutted the building out to sell off copper and things like that, and it exposed asbestos and other contaminants, we were required to remediate it before demolition. Whereas if that hadn't happened, it could have been remediated on the ground. That increases the cost. So we said, you know what, let's just start with the small investment of a hazardous material survey. Once we got that back, we said, okay, we have one single piece of actual data to work with. This is not myth, this is not guesswork, this is fact. Here are the contaminants within the building that have to be remediated, and here's what it will cost to remediate those. Let's use that as a springboard to figure out how much it will cost to clean this building up and demolish it. And we just took it one step at a time, and we all worked together as a team through that entire process. And so now we're through about maybe 60–70% demolition. The building is coming down. I just took a rubble tour. It's a great word. So I took a tour of the rubble and the dismantling actually just earlier this week. And so I'm keeping an eye on it. We get regular updates in our council meetings once a month, and we are on time and on track to see that building completely gone by spring of 19. So
that's great.
What a tremendous project, and it's a lot of work, but any community leader out there, you can get through it. You can get to the other side of it.
Definitely. You were talking about how the hospital being there and being in the shape it was really was kind of draining the morale,
absolutely,
of the community. Now that progress is being made, I mean, do you see a ripple effect to that?
Absolutely.
Just kind of re-energizing,
Absolutely.
what you're doing. So
because so when I was running for mayor and in that first year in office, everywhere I went, everywhere was, what are we going to do about that old hospital? What's going to happen? Now I'm going to speak to groups, and they're saying, well, what's going to go there? What's going to be next? And so people are starting to look forward instead of looking backward, and that's huge for our community. But one of the most important things I can convey about that whole project, there's no magic bullet, no special sauce, if you will. It really is just tenacity and teamwork. There is no secret recipe that made this work where they go, we can't duplicate that here. You absolutely can duplicate that in any community if you're just really tenacious about it and you work together as a team. That's what it requires, and if you do that, you'll get it done.
Great. Tell me a little bit about what else is going on in Richmond.
Goodness.
I know, because you have this great project, but I'm sure you have so much other stuff going on.
We are still, Richmond was designated a stellar city in 2013, so we have quite the resume. We are a two-time All-America city and a stellar city. We are still in the midst of finishing up our stellar project. We have the beautiful Elstro Plaza, which is our downtown park that was a result of our stellar designation, and some other great stuff that's happening, but we are in the midst now of finishing up our facades through downtown. We're going through that process right now. We're also under a lot of construction work, but we had an aging infrastructure that needed upgrading, and I'm thankful that the state of Indiana sees that need and has invested a lot of money in our city. So, I'm also excited. We landed Blue Buffalo in late 2016. They'll be opening their doors very soon, so Blue Buffalo pet products will be manufactured in Richmond. And so, those major components that you always hear about cities needing to succeed. How's your infrastructure? How's your quality of place? How's your job landscape? And here we have beautiful downtown green space, beautiful facades coming into our downtown to improve the quality of place. We have an amazing park system. We have Blue Buffalo opening its doors. Oman Casting is a new company that's also in Richmond. So we have new jobs on the horizon coming, and all those pieces are there, and the infrastructure is being fixed. And so those three major players in any city's success are all in the process of improvement right now in Richmond. And so it's really important to me to make Richmond a real gold star on the map of Indiana. And so, yesterday I was elected president of the Indiana Conference of Mayors. And so my very first line of business right out of the gate is I said, does that allow me the leverage to lobby for Indiana Conference of Mayors to meet in Richmond? I would really like to show all this off to all the mayors of the state. And the answer was, well, you're the boss now, so if that's what you want to do. So I said, absolutely. I really want to bring the mayors to Richmond. So I will look forward to hosting the mayors in 2019 and showing them all the work we're doing and what we're getting done, and hopefully we can set a good example for the state.
Great. Well, Mayor, when you think, in the long term, right, doing a lot right now, what is your kind of long-term hopes for the city? The improvements that you're making today,
Yeah.
what do you hope that you do 3 to 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, my long-term hopes are, it's really important to me to revitalize our downtown. Downtowns are really taking center stage these days, and I've got to make sure to do my part to stimulate that process. And so I'm working to stabilize some of our beautiful old buildings in our downtown. Also to, like I said, fix that infrastructure, but to increase the connectivity. So I'm installing a bicycle and pedestrian pathway right now through our downtown historic depot districts to connect all that together, and then to invigorate some of the housing market down there so that we are attracting people, and particularly those millennials that we talk about all the time. It's always a subject. As the boomers age into and past retirement, the millennials are taking their place in the country, where they're buying their homes and starting their families and their careers. They're more mobile, so they're taking their jobs with them. So I am really working to build an attractive, quality center city so that they can live down there, work down there, play down there, and build their life down there in the heart of Richmond. And I think that will be a key to our future success.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mayor.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate
I really
it.
appreciate you having me here today. I really do. Thank you for the time.